Welcome back to the Play On Footy channel. Today we're going to be dissecting a piece of media from the Backjack Studios YouTube channel featuring Will Schofield, 194 game play for the West Coast Eagles between 2006 to 2021, I believe. And then we got Mark Reddings as well as the other journalist staying alongside him. Schofield touches on basically the drug scandal in the AFL at the moment that's really reared its head because of the Andrew Wilkie MP coming to light with all the fake injuries and undercover or under the table drug testing as well. He also touches on that Will Schofield wasn't privy to any fake injuries at the time of the club. He did come in at a very controversial time in 2006 to the West Coast Eagles when they had the Ben Cousins drug saga, and it wasn't just Ben, it was pretty much half the team in Western Australia. He also touches on the AFL players do drugs, and that, you know, if you don't know that, you're living under a rock. He also touches on the fact that people in society do drugs. And so he tries to deflect what's happening in the AFL onto the general populace, which I find interesting. So we'll go and play a bit of the clip. I'll stop and sort of start it. And yeah, we'll get into it.
Illicit drugs policy in the AFL. There's been plenty floating around.
Haven't changed, I don't think, significantly at all.
2005, pretty much since 2005. So the faking of injuries, can we address that one first? That has to be a significant minority of players. And I'm talking, I've never once heard of that. I've never seen it at West Coast. That's my only club.
Yep.
But you hear about other clubs and things happening. I've never heard of that once. I've never seen it happen. So if that's happened at a club, it must have been once in a year. One time it happened, and old mates, whoever is out there producing that's just such a significant minority that I think that's one thing that's really triggered people. But people see that and think that, you know, every week the club doctors are sitting down with half the playing squad on who's done drugs this week.
Yeah, well, not at West Coast at the moment, Scully, especially with all our plethora of talent, you would say. I think another thing that I'd want to touch on as well is that, you know, currently as it stands, and in the past as well, not just currently, but in the past, a lot of players have, rightly or wrongly, put the white flag up with the mental health banner. I'm not saying that they don't have any mental health problems, but there could be a select few there that are just doing that as an easy cop out because of their, you know, their drug issues, or they are divulging or dabbling in drugs, and they, you know, don't want to get caught. And the 3-strike policy that, you know, did come out in 2005, as Scully said, through ASADA, you know, there's loopholes in that. It's not a clear-cut sort of policy. And, you know, the likelihoods of, you know, Tom Boyd, the Western Bulldogs player, you know, I'm sure his was legitimate, but there's others where you think, okay, you know, mental health and drugs, you know, if you do dabble in drugs, you're not going to have the best mental health, are you? You know, it does affect your brain chemicals. And so, you know, when that happens, for instance, you know, Jesse Hogan, I think he had the death of his dad. Of course, that's going to have some trauma associated with that. But, you know, if you're taking illicit substances on a regular basis, your mental health is not going to be good at all, because, you know, if you're using that as a coping mechanism, that's not the right thing to go, or right way to go about it. I'm just using those two as they are at the top of my head at the moment. Obviously there's the Buddy Franklin mental health as well. So it doesn't mean faking an injury like a physical injury. It could be just mental health, which was thrown around a lot as well. But I can see a lot of AFL players probably taking the mickey out of it as well, to a degree, which Scully doesn't mention, but
that's not what happens.
And the issue is, just quickly, is even this week we were seeing players being managed, players going for scans, and it's opened a lot of suspicion on players, most of whom, 99% of whom, I'm guessing,
higher than 99%,
yeah.
Right? So on that thing, so it's a huge minority. It may happen once a year, may have happened once in 5 years. So that's that. But to talk about that situation, right? And I don't know where you sit on this, but this is where I do. If this has happened, to be worried about illicit substances being in your system on game day, it means that you have to have done something within 48 hours of you playing.
During the week.
So, no, not during the week. We're talking on a Thursday or Friday.
So it's essentially you've done something not on a weekend.
Correct. Yeah. So if you're playing on a Saturday and you're worried about illicit substances in your system,
you've got an issue.
You have a huge drug issue. You have addiction problems. You have mental issues. To think that you're above whatever, not only societal beliefs, but your teammates, that's why it doesn't happen. I'm telling you right now. And I would know a thing or two about, inverted commas, drug culture. Got to the footy club, West Coast, 2006, and that's externally been reported as drug culture. Even then, that wasn't happening then. So,
yeah, to Scully to say that, he came to the club in 2006, the height of, big drug cultural problem, not just at the West Coast Eagles, but in the AFL. I mean, these boys at West Coast, in the early noughties to when they won the premiership, or even, just after winning the premiership in 2007, massive cascading problem, and it was just swept under the rug. Now, who was it? Well, worst fault? It could have been Dalton Gooding, who was the CEO at the time. Obviously, Trevor Nisbet was a part of the group there, the high-ranking official. I just think that, for Sco to say that, yes, he was a young bloke, but he would have been roped into stuff he wouldn't want to divulge into, because obviously, he's got probably mates or people affiliated with him, and that's what makes this problem just grow and fester over time, is that people are scared to speak the truth or come out, especially, he's spent 13 years or 14 years in the AFL system. He has a lot of ties to, obviously, the West Coast Football Club, but people that have played in that. And it's like a boys' club. It's a code. It's a bro code, whatever you want to call it. You rat someone out, you rat a club out. Yeah, good luck. He's still affiliated with the West Coast Eagles. He does the Sco-Down report. So you're not going to get full transparency or honesty from any ex-player or ex-coach or what have you. It's just not going to happen. And for instance, back in 2013, when the Essendon Bombers had the Asada problem, they had that guy that was called the Weapon. Can't remember his name, but he was the scapegoat because he wasn't in with the group, i.e. James Hird, the golden boy of Essendon Bombers. They'll just kick you to the curb. And so Will Schofield's definitely not, even though he's got so much dirt on people and knows exactly what's going on, it still goes on to this day. He's not going to risk his budding media career now for Backchat Studios to open a can of worms, which it's already about to be exposed through Andrew Wilkie.
To go out and talk about that sort of stuff. But if it does happen, right? If that happened and a player went to a club doctor and said, Thursday night, did drugs, as the club doctor, what is the alternative for the club doctor who's trying to protect that player? What's the alternative? What would you like, you or anyone who's blowing up about this? What should they do? Because in my mind, a player goes to a club doctor, don't worry about club doctor, a doctor, and says, I've got an issue, this has happened. The consequences are, if Asada rocks up under the World Anti-Doping Code, they test me, not only am I done for 3-4 years, Joel Smith, but likely my livelihood's done, likely everything I exist for is in the bin. So as the club doctor, do you go, okay, bad luck, you've done drugs, you're a bad boy, go out and play and risk everything? Or do they do what they've apparently done? I would say the latter.
Of course.
Pulling them out is a protective thing for players. I don't see the outrage.
I understand doctor-patient confidentiality.
No, not about that. You're looking after it's not about confidentiality. It's about... So what's the alternative? Give me an alternative in that situation.
The question is, and this is what's been thrown up, is it a case of if someone has an issue, they can go to Dr. Schofield at a club, for instance, argument's sake, once a month on a
but that's not happening.
I know it's not happening.
That people think it is, but that's not what goes on. Specific instance, if you think you have illicit substances on game day, it means Thursday or Friday you're getting on the bags, right? If that's happened, what's the alternative? Give me an alternative. I don't think there is one. So all this outrage about players, abusing the code and abusing the privilege of being paid lots of money.
Are they being protected? Are they being protected though by this doctor privilege that you talk about? Are they being protected above and beyond what they should under the voluntary drug testing regime. Let's make this clear. Voluntary. I don't think the NRL has a voluntary,
Yep.
and it's obviously sport integrity. Sport integrity is after not anything else outside of competition. They're after on competition game day. So
Yep.
that's for some of this. Do we have to rewrite the laws for drug testing in the AFL? Do we have to have a reset? Do we have to get clubs, a la presidents, CEOs, to be more aware of the issues that are facing some very few?
I love how Mark Redding says very few. I mean, just to back Scully up, it's happening widespread with all the 18 clubs. The fact of the matter is, with this proposition that Mark Redding is just saying how we have to rewrite the policies, it's not just rewriting the policies, it's about being transparent and actually having accountability. A policy is a policy. Doesn't mean people won't try and still break it or find a way to navigate around it. And that's the problem with the AFL. That's why this keeps growing and festering the way it does, and the lack of accountability and the sort of laughing or sort of just sweeping under the rug mentality, because, you know, men will be men, and, you know, we're out there like warriors on the weekend and then being daredevils or devils during the weekday. I mean, that was Ben Cousins' mentality. I'm not saying that's, you know, everyone's mentality, but for him to come out, make a documentary back in 2007 or 2008, Such Is Life, and to showcase the football lifestyle, it's pretty hard to argue that, you know, that's not still happening. Of course it's still happening. And the AFL can act as if they're trying to reinvent the wheel and do another policy and say, oh, yeah, we're being proactive with it.
Players who have an issue. Do we have to reshape how clubs are involved? I know Jeff Kennett, Eddie Maguire, more than keen to have, if player Schofield has had a strike or he's got some issues on this front, the only person, to my knowledge, that knows at the club is the doctor. Should the CEO or someone in a really high-ranking position be able to provide assistance?
Yes. And I think they're two different issues, just so we know. What you're asking now is not what everyone's outraged about.
No. Yeah.
Faking injuries. And they're very separate issues. Do players in the AFL do drugs? Yes. Or it's almost guaranteed. We know that. We've seen
Schofield speaking the truth. Woo!
reports come out, right? Do drugs exist in society?
No, but go back to the footballers.
Yeah, I'm coming back, right?
Mark Redding's trying to keep it with the footy, keep it with the players. Yeah, but Scully reckons, it happens in society. That's the easiest cop out. He's trying to deflect, and it's just a staple reaction, just like Simon Goodwin, who knows nothing about what happens in his club with drugs, and Clayton Oliver. Yeah, right.
Yes, right. And so, do you expect to create a situation in the AFL where it is a drug-free, no tolerance issue?
Well, that's the question. Let me join the analogy that's been made. If given the AFL and say a mine worker or a worker that has to test negative to alcohol or drugs,
then they're using the typical FIFO analogy, the plebeian way of living, which is working for a living. Of course, the AFL players are going to be shamed on the back page, Scully, because you get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to kick a leather football around a grass field. I mean, sponsors, betting companies, they want the player to play. You guys are a commodity under the AFL system. So, you know, whether you stuff up or not, if you do stuff up, you are going to, you know, be, I guess, publicly shamed, and then a $5,000 slap on the wrist, and then you'd be back playing after 2 games. I mean, that is the policy, and it just isn't working in the AFL. I think I made a video. Bailey Smith got pretty similar repercussion, and then you got Jack Ginnivan recently as well.
It's essentially saying to that worker, you can't have any drugs in your system, otherwise you're sacked, or something quite serious.
Yes.
So why does the AFL not fall on? This is the question people are asking. Why doesn't the AFL have the same parameters for their employees?
Probably the public nature of it, I would say. Person on the mines, fly in, fly out worker, rocks up to work, has illicit substances in his system. See you later. No one knows about it. Probably not even his family. So I know that this is a really commonly used sort of
analogy,
example.
Yeah.
If it's an AFL player,
Splashed in
I
front
don't
of
reckon you're getting off the back page for 2 weeks. Everyone in your life knows this. Yes, you lose your job, just like the mining worker. But I think it's the public nature. That's what I would say.
And the counter argument is that if you're in the AFL and you're earning really good money. So look,
correct. So that's why it's a different issue. The drug policy needs updating.
Yeah, it's information that's come to hand. So
the outrage around the drug taking in AFL players, I just can't see how that's not widespread through every sport in the land.
And again, Schofield tries to deflect away from the AFL. It happens everywhere. You know, let's normalise drugs in sport. Let's glorify players in the AFL, no matter how highly ranked they are, how many All-Australians they've won or Brownlows they've won. Let's give these people every bit of media attention and treat them like gods, you know, or warriors that they were once. I mean, it's just absolute hypocrisy.
No, don't ask you. No, let me ask this. Can I ask you what? So at the moment, if I get caught, and maybe if you as well, I'm assuming, if we get caught for, say, DD or using drugs,
yes.
Whether it's 6PR,
yeah, we're done.
B Channel 7, Fox, you name it.
Yes.
What do you think our punishment would be if we get done for drink driving?
Sacked.
Well, yeah, it's a likely position. So in my case, I go, well, we've had a few, let's get an Uber.
Yes.
Footballers, now is this because they are younger, because most of them in their early 20s and probably, and we're all a bit stupid back then. Well, not stupid, we weren't as worldly as what we are now, that they haven't got that mindset of, you know, whether it's a Joel Smith, for instance, or any other player that we can rattle off in the past 5 years. Do they think they weren't going to get caught? Did they think filming this is not going to cause an issue?
Yeah, probably, because, you know, it's like any error of judgment you ever make, any mistake you ever make. 100%. It's not like I don't think there's really any malicious people. Like, there's very few malicious people that exist. So when this happens, it's not like they're trying to disrespect their teammates or their fans or the position they're in. But shit happens.
Shit happens.
Yeah,
right. And
I get it.
So the realistic nature is, like, things are going to happen. So what does the policy need to be? Is it a complete punishable one where you know,
one strike, you're gone? I mean, that seems really tough. But let's go back again to the AFL Players Association. You would have been part of it. They volunteered to try and put something in place. Two fronts: A, to help, assist, educate players that are venturing or addicted to drugs. And again, very small margin of players that are addicted, but some that experiment, which is probably very regular.
Yeah, I would find it, given the drug testing that I was under as a footballer, I would find it very hard to believe there'd be any sort of majority of players using drugs regularly.
And then Scully just goes and says that absolutely contradicts everything he's said up to this point, which is like 22 minutes into the discussion of the podcast. And yeah, I just think it's just like another reason why ex-AFL players shouldn't be commentators or be in the media. I understand they've got to do some sort of job after football, but when you've got people saying stuff like Scully, I'm not trying to bash Scully, I think Scully's a good bloke, but I just find it just absolute hypocrisy. It's just a massive boys club. They all protect each other and they
right.
But that being said, you just said that it'd be nonsensical to think that drugs aren't used by AFL players.
Because people do drugs. It exists in society. You're under a rock if you don't think that. So
to finish, I think ex-players that say there's no drug problem in the AFL are completely delusional. Scully literally came to the Eagles in 2006 when the Eagles were in a drug-fueled mess. The AFL will always be a boys' club and deflect the issue forever. Simon Goodwin proclaiming he doesn't know about anything within the four walls of his club or about, you know, Clayton Oliver and all that kind of jazz. I just don't buy it. Accountability and transparency. It's 2024. People can sniff bullshit a mile away.